Discipline is not proven when life is smooth. It is revealed when life resists you. Anyone can feel motivated when things are going their way, when the plan works, when people cooperate, when the environment supports effort. But what about when none of that is true? What about when your energy is low? When your plans collapse? When your confidence shakes? When nothing around you feels stable? That is where real discipline begins. The Stoics understood something that most people avoid. You do not train for comfort. You train for instability, because instability is guaranteed. Today, we are going to explore 7 foundational habits, not motivational tricks, not temporary hacks, but structural principles that create a stable internal framework even when your external world feels uncertain. These habits are not dramatic. They are quiet. They are repeatable. They are demanding, and they work. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Build structure before you build emotion. Most people wait to feel ready. The disciplined person does not. They act because it is time to act. Mood is volatile. It shifts with sleep quality, stress, environment, conversation, even weather. If you rely on mood to determine action, your consistency will collapse as quickly as your emotional state changes. Structure is different. Structure does not ask how you feel. It tells you what happens next. This is the first distinction that separates those who drift from those who remain steady. They decide in advance. The Stoics practiced pre-commitment. They did not wake up asking, "Do I feel like doing this today?" They asked, "What is my duty?" There is power in removing negotiation. When you already know your first step, the mind has less room to argue. Hesitation feeds on uncertainty. Structure eliminates uncertainty. Instead of waking up into a cloud of options, you wake into sequence. You do not think, you begin. And that beginning is everything. Because starting is where most people lose. The longer you delay, the more friction builds. The more friction builds, the heavier the task becomes. The heavier it becomes, the easier it is to avoid. Structure interrupts that spiral. A pre-decided sequence of actions becomes your internal rail system. No matter how chaotic the environment becomes, your mind has something stable to return to. You don't need inspiration, you need the next step. And that next step must already be defined. The disciplined individual removes micro-decisions that drain mental energy. They do not debate trivialities in the morning. They conserve willpower for meaningful challenges. When your structure is strong, it catches you on bad days. And you will have bad days. Days when sleep was short. Days when criticism hits hard. Days when self-doubt creeps in. Days when progress feels invisible. Structure holds when emotion fails. It becomes your guardrail. You don't need to redesign your life when you're tired. You don't need to rethink your goals when you're discouraged. You return to the plan that was built when your mind was clear. This return is discipline, not perfection, not intensity. Return. Each time you follow through despite discomfort, you strengthen identity. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who acts when it feels good, but as someone who acts because it is chosen. That identity becomes powerful, because identity drives behavior faster than motivation ever could. When you see yourself as reliable, action becomes automatic. You don't debate whether you will follow through. You already know you will. Structure creates clarity. Clarity reduces friction. Reduced friction preserves momentum. And momentum, even small momentum, builds resilience. You do not need a perfect day. You need a stable first move. That is how discipline survives uncertainty. Chapter 2. Move your body before the world moves you. Before you check your phone, before you absorb news, before you respond to anyone else's demands, move. The body and mind are not separate systems. A passive body creates a passive mind. When you begin the day in stillness without intention, your brain remains in a low-energy state. Reaction replaces initiative. But deliberate movement changes your internal chemistry immediately. Walk, stretch, breathe deeply, stand upright, cold water on your face, push-ups, a short run, anything that signals activation. Movement is not about fitness in this context. It is about command. It tells your nervous system, we are awake, we are engaged, we are leading. This early signal has a cascading effect. Your posture shifts, your breathing stabilizes, your focus sharpens, your thoughts align faster. When your body feels structured, your mind follows. This is observable. Slouched posture increases mental fatigue. Shallow breathing increases anxiety. Slow movement decreases alertness. Correct posture, intentional breathing, purposeful motion. These are physical acts of mental discipline. You are not waiting for clarity, you are generating it physiologically. There is something deeply powerful about beginning your day with self-directed movement. It communicates authority over comfort. The bed invites softness, the alarm invites resistance. When you rise and move anyway, you strengthen will, and will is like muscle. It strengthens through resistance. This early action creates momentum that carries into your responsibilities. You enter conversations calmer, you approach work sharper, you tolerate disruption better, because your baseline is already active. While others wake into reaction, scrolling, absorbing, responding, you wake into alignment, and that difference compounds. You do not need an hour-long workout, you need consistency. Repetition builds identity. Identity builds stability. Movement becomes your signal, your ritual, your declaration that the day begins under your direction, not the world's. Chapter 3. Decide tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. Indecision drains energy. Clarity conserves it. The disciplined person does not wake up asking, "What should I do today?" They already answered that question the night before. This simple act, planning the next day in advance, eliminates morning confusion, but it must be done correctly. Do not list everything. List what matters. Define 3 to 5 essential actions. Make them specific, not work on project, but write 500 words of Chapter 3. Call supplier at 10 a.m. Review financial spreadsheet for 30 minutes. Specific tasks reduce resistance. Vague intentions create delay. When you wake up and your first task is already defined, you step directly into execution. No searching, no guessing, no wandering. This continuity builds trust in yourself. You begin to understand that your future self is supported by your past self. That creates confidence, and confidence reduces hesitation. The Stoics practiced anticipation, not to worry, but to prepare. When you define your tasks, you mentally rehearse engagement. You see obstacles in advance. You pre-commit to action. Morning becomes execution, not contemplation. You reduce emotional interference. Even if the day shifts, and it will, your anchor remains. The list is your contract. It does not care about your mood. It reflects your intention, and intention becomes reality through repetition. Each day planned with clarity strengthens internal order, and internal order is what protects you when external order disappears. Chapter 4. Narrow your attention to the present step. Most anxiety is projection. Most hesitation is anticipation. You think about the entire workload, the entire month, the entire outcome, and the weight becomes overwhelming.
Discipline does not operate in the future, it operates in the current step. You cannot execute 5 tasks simultaneously, you can execute 1. When your attention fragments, your energy weakens. When your attention narrows, your energy intensifies. This is where the Stoic principle of control becomes practical. You cannot control outcomes, you control effort. You cannot control reactions, you control response. You cannot control chaos, you control the step in front of you. When you bring your attention fully to what your hands are doing, distraction loses power. This requires training. Your mind will wander, it will drift into memory, it will speculate about the future, it will replay conversations, it will imagine criticism. Each time it drifts, return it. Without judgment, just return. That act of returning is discipline, not intensity. Return, again and again. Over time, this builds endurance. You stop needing constant stimulation. You develop the ability to stay engaged even when the task is slow, repetitive, or uncomfortable. That is real strength. Not speed, not dramatic bursts of effort. Sustained presence. Presence protects momentum. It reduces emotional noise. It prevents small obstacles from becoming mental catastrophes. The current step is always manageable. The entire mountain is not. Focus on the stone in your hand. Place it carefully, then the next, and the next. That is how structure is built under pressure. Part 2. The inner architecture of self-command. We have already established something essential. Discipline is not intensity, it is structure, it is return, it is repetition under pressure. Now we go deeper, because discipline is not only what you do, it is how you think, how you speak, how you interpret, how you recover. And if those inner mechanisms are unstable, your outer structure will eventually fracture. Let's continue. Chapter 5. Control your words before they control you. There is a form of discipline that is rarely discussed. It is not physical, it is not visible, it does not require strength, but it determines the quality of your relationships, your leadership, and your self-respect. It is disciplined speech. Most people speak to release pressure. The disciplined person speaks to reflect principle. There is a difference. When pressure rises, when you are criticized, misunderstood, interrupted, disrespected, your nervous system activates, your heart rate increases, your breath shortens, your mind begins scanning for defense. In that moment, speech becomes reactive, and reactive speech is rarely aligned with your values. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that speech must be filtered through reason, not emotion, because once a word leaves your mouth, it cannot be recalled. It can be explained, it can be apologized for, but it cannot be undone. The disciplined individual inserts space between stimulus and response. That space is power. In that space, you ask, is this aligned with who I intend to be? Not, how do I defend myself right now? When you speak from pressure, you escalate chaos. When you speak from principle, you reduce it. This does not mean you are passive. It means you are precise. Precision in speech builds authority. Authority is not loudness. It is clarity without agitation. When you lower your emotional volume, your words carry more weight. When you shorten your sentences, they sharpen. When you remove exaggeration, truth becomes cleaner. And people feel that difference. Disciplined speech changes the tempo of the room. When others are reactive, you become the stabilizer. When others are loud, you become measured. When others are defensive, you become grounded. And that steadiness builds respect, not because you demand it, but because you demonstrate control. To train this, begin with pauses. When someone challenges you, pause. When you feel insulted, pause. When you feel misunderstood, Pause. That pause interrupts impulse. Impulse seeks immediate release. Principle seeks alignment. The pause gives principle time to speak. Over time, you will notice something powerful. You begin to feel less drained by conversation. Why? Because emotional speech consumes energy. It triggers defense cycles. It escalates tone. It creates mental replay after the interaction ends. Disciplined speech conserves energy. You say what is necessary. You omit what is unnecessary. You do not add words for effect. You reduce emotional leakage, and that builds internal calm. There is also another layer to this. Speech shapes identity. When you complain constantly, you reinforce victimhood. When you exaggerate constantly, you reinforce instability. When you gossip constantly, you reinforce distraction. But when your words reflect standards, you reinforce structure. You begin to see yourself as someone who speaks deliberately. That identity changes behavior faster than any motivational technique. Disciplined speech is not about silence. It is about usefulness. Before speaking, ask, does this clarify? Does this build? Does this resolve? Does this align? If not, silence may be stronger. Silence is not weakness. It is containment, and containment is strength. In pressure-filled environments, business, leadership, family conflict, the person who governs their words governs their influence, because language shapes perception, perception shapes reaction, reaction shapes outcome. So, discipline your speech. It will discipline your life.
Chapter 6. Rise at the same time, especially when you don't want to. The morning is not about productivity. It is about authority. The first decision of the day determines who leads, comfort or commitment. Most people negotiate with their alarm. 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. Tomorrow I'll start seriously. Each negotiation weakens identity, because identity is built through kept promises. When you choose a wake-up time and honor it regardless of mood, you train something deeper than routine. You train self-command. The body resists discomfort naturally. Warmth feels safe. Stillness feels easy. But growth rarely occurs inside ease. The early hour is symbolic. It says, I move because I decided to move, not because it feels right, not because conditions are ideal, not because I am perfectly rested, because it is time. And that consistency stabilizes your internal clock. Energy improves, sleep improves, mental clarity improves, but more importantly, trust improves. You begin trusting yourself. You know that when you decide something, you follow through. That self-trust changes everything. It reduces hesitation throughout the day, because if you can rise when you don't feel like it, you can act when you don't feel like it. It transfers. The discipline of the morning carries into work, into conversations, into health, into decisions. It builds momentum. Momentum reduces friction. Friction is what drains most people. They spend more energy debating action than taking it. A fixed wake-up time removes debate. There is no daily reconsideration. It is settled. When something is settled, energy is conserved, and conserved energy can be directed toward meaningful effort. The disciplined individual does not ask, how do I feel about today? They ask, what is required? And they begin. Even on days when energy is low, even on days when the sky feels heavy, even on days when motivation is absent. Because discipline is not mood-dependent, it is identity-driven, and identity is built through repetition. Each morning you rise on time, you reinforce, I act when I said I would. That sentence is powerful. It reshapes self-image, and self-image shapes future action automatically. You become less reactive, less negotiable, less fragile. The morning becomes your anchor. Before messages, before demands,
before expectations, you are already in motion, and motion before reaction creates advantage. Chapter 7. Review without excuses. The disciplined person does not end the day in distraction, they end it in reflection. Most people avoid reviewing their day because it confronts truth, and truth can be uncomfortable. But avoidance prevents growth. Nightly review is not self-criticism, it is calibration. Ask yourself, what did I execute well? Where did I hesitate? Where did I act from emotion? Where did I act from principle? What drained me? What strengthened me? Be precise. Vagueness protects ego. Specificity builds improvement. If you delayed important work, say it clearly. If you reacted emotionally, admit it clearly. If you avoided discomfort, acknowledge it clearly, without defense. Excuses interrupt learning. Ownership accelerates it. The purpose of review is not to feel bad, it is to become accurate. Accuracy builds alignment. When you see your patterns clearly, you can adjust them deliberately. Without review, you repeat blindly. With review, you evolve consciously. This habit closes the day with clarity. It prevents emotional residue from carrying into sleep. It creates mental closure. You know what was handled. You know what remains. You know what must change. That clarity reduces anxiety. It gives structure to tomorrow, and structure protects discipline. Let's pause for a moment. Look at what we have built so far. 1. Structure before mood. 2. Movement before reaction. 3. Clear planning before mourning. 4. Presence in the current step. 5. Disciplined speech. 6. Consistent rising. 7. Honest review. These are not extreme practices. They are repeatable behaviors, but repetition under pressure creates transformation. And now we go deeper, because discipline is not just behavioral, it is philosophical. It requires a shift in how you interpret difficulty itself. In the next section, we will explore how to use adversity as training, how to detach from outcome without losing intensity, how to remain stable when recognition is absent, how to sustain discipline when progress feels invisible, how to prevent burnout while maintaining standards. Chapter 8. Redefine hardship as training. Most people interpret difficulty as interruption. The disciplined mind interprets difficulty as rehearsal. This shift changes everything. When something goes wrong, the undisciplined mind asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The trained mind asks, "What is this training me?" Frustration, patience, restraint, focus, adaptability. Every obstacle is a stimulus. Stimulus can produce reaction or refinement. You choose. If you treat difficulty as unfair punishment, you weaken. If you treat difficulty as resistance training, you strengthen. The Stoics practiced mental rehearsal of adversity, not to invite suffering, but to reduce shock. Shock destabilizes discipline. Preparedness stabilizes it. When something breaks, when someone disappoints you, when plans collapse, instead of spiraling, you think, "This is part of the training." And immediately your posture changes. You stop resisting reality. You begin engaging with it. Resistance drains energy. Engagement directs it. Hardship becomes useful. Not pleasant, but useful. And usefulness creates purpose. Purpose stabilizes discipline. We will continue expanding into deeper layers in Part 3. Emotional endurance, detachment from outcome, long-term consistency versus short-term intensity, guarding attention in the digital age, the discipline of rest, the discipline of identity under invisibility. Part 3. Endurance, detachment, and the discipline of long horizons. So far, we've built structure. Now we build durability, because structure without endurance collapses under pressure. And pressure is not an exception in life. It is the environment. Discipline is not tested in short bursts. It is tested over time. Let's go deeper. Chapter 9. Detach from outcome without detaching from effort. One of the most misunderstood aspects of discipline is this: you must care deeply about effort and care lightly about outcome. This sounds contradictory, but it is the core of stability. Most people collapse emotionally because they attach their identity to results. If the result is positive, they feel worthy. If the result is negative, they feel inadequate. This creates emotional volatility. Volatility destroys consistency. The Stoics separated what is controllable from what is not. Effort is controllable. Preparation is controllable. Response is controllable. Outcome is not. Even if you do everything correctly, the result may still shift due to variables outside your influence. Markets change, people change, timing shifts, circumstances interfere. If your discipline depends on guaranteed outcomes, it will fail, because outcomes are never guaranteed, but effort is always available. The disciplined individual measures success differently. They ask, did I act according to my standard? Not, did I win? This question protects internal stability. When you focus on effort, you remain powerful regardless of result. When you focus on result, you become fragile. Fragility leads to hesitation. Hesitation leads to inconsistency. Inconsistency leads to identity confusion. And identity confusion leads to collapse under pressure. Detachment from outcome does not mean apathy. It means clarity. You give your full effort. You execute precisely. You prepare thoroughly. Then you release the result. You do not cling. Clinging creates tension. Tension distorts judgment. Distorted judgment weakens performance. The paradox is this: when you detach from outcome, your performance improves because your mind becomes cleaner. Fear of failure decreases. Desperation decreases. Overthinking decreases. You become more fluid, more focused, more deliberate. The disciplined person builds intensity into execution, but lightness into expectation. They are serious about process. They are calm about results. This balance preserves long-term endurance. If every outcome determines your emotional state, your energy will fluctuate constantly. And fluctuating energy destroys long-term rhythm. Rhythm matters more than intensity. Intensity is exciting. Rhythm is powerful. Rhythm allows you to continue when results are slow, and results are often slow. That is where most people stop. You must not.
Chapter 10. Endure the phase of invisibility. There is a phase in every disciplined pursuit where effort is invisible. No recognition, no applause, no measurable reward. Just repetition, just work, just silence. This is where most people lose faith, because modern culture trains us to expect feedback quickly. Likes, comments, numbers, validation. But real growth does not operate on that timeline. It grows beneath the surface, like roots before branches, like foundations before walls. If you quit during invisibility, you never reach visibility. Discipline requires tolerance for delayed reward. Delayed reward strengthens patience. Patience strengthens composure. Composure strengthens consistency. When your progress is not yet visible, remind yourself, the work is still building something, even if you cannot see it. Muscle grows invisibly before it shows. Skill sharpens invisibly before it impresses. Character deepens invisibly before it influences. The disciplined individual continues through silence. They do not need applause to act. They do not need immediate proof to continue, because their identity is not dependent on recognition. It is dependent on alignment. Ask yourself,
If no one noticed this effort, would I still do it? If the answer is yes, you are building real discipline. If the answer is no, your motivation is external. External motivation fluctuates. Internal standards stabilize. Invisibility trains purity of intention. You act because it is right, not because it is rewarded. And when recognition eventually arrives, if it does not control you, because you trained without it. That is power. Chapter 11. Guard your attention ruthlessly. In the modern world, distraction is not accidental. It is engineered. Your attention is constantly targeted. Notifications, scrolling, noise, comparison, outrage, stimulation. Each interruption fragments focus. Fragmented focus weakens discipline. The mind was not built to switch tasks continuously. Every switch consumes cognitive energy. When energy is scattered, execution weakens. The disciplined individual treats attention as a protected resource, not something to be spent casually. They limit unnecessary input. They schedule deep work deliberately. They reduce exposure to emotional noise, not because they are disconnected, but because they are intentional. If your mind is constantly absorbing random stimuli, it cannot sustain deep effort. It remains reactive, and reactive minds struggle to maintain structure. Guarding attention requires boundaries. Turn off non-essential notifications. Set designated times for communication. Create periods of uninterrupted work. Reduce digital clutter. This is not extreme minimalism. It is strategic clarity. Your attention determines your trajectory. What you focus on repeatedly becomes your internal narrative. Your internal narrative shapes identity. Identity shapes behavior. If your attention is filled with comparison, outrage, and distraction, your behavior will reflect that instability. If your attention is focused on deliberate effort, growth, and principle, your behavior stabilizes. Attention is direction. Direction is destiny. Protect it. Chapter 13. Use discomfort as a signal, not a stop sign. Discomfort is often misunderstood. Most people treat discomfort as danger, but discomfort is usually growth. Learning feels uncomfortable. Difficult conversations feel uncomfortable. Physical training feels uncomfortable. Risk feels uncomfortable. The undisciplined mind seeks immediate comfort. The trained mind asks, is this discomfort harmful or is it developmental? There is a difference. Harmful discomfort signals injury or danger. Developmental discomfort signals expansion. If you withdraw every time something feels uncomfortable, you limit growth. Growth requires friction. Friction creates adaptation. Adaptation builds strength. When discomfort appears, pause. Do not immediately retreat. Evaluate. Is this aligned with my values? If yes, stay, even if it feels difficult. Each time you remain engaged despite discomfort, you strengthen resilience. Resilience stabilizes discipline, and discipline stabilizes identity. Chapter 14. Separate emotion from decision. Emotion is data. It is not command. You may feel discouraged. That does not mean you should stop. You may feel anxious. That does not mean you are incapable. You may feel uncertain. That does not mean the path is wrong. The disciplined individual observes emotion without surrendering to it. They acknowledge, I feel this, but they decide based on principle. This separation prevents impulsive action. It reduces regret. It strengthens clarity. Emotion fluctuates hourly. Principle remains stable. When decisions are based on principle, consistency increases. Consistency builds trust. Trust builds confidence. Confidence stabilizes behavior. Emotion is informative, but principle is directive. Learn the difference. At this point, something important becomes clear. Discipline is not a collection of habits. It is an identity shift. It is moving from I act when I feel like it to I act because I chose to. That shift transforms everything. In part 4, we go even deeper. The discipline of patience over years, how to recover quickly after failure, how to avoid burnout without lowering standards, how to remain calm in public pressure, how to lead others through personal discipline, how to create internal calm when chaos surrounds you.
Part 4. Recovery, Patience, and the Calm Center. Up to this point, we have built structure, endurance, detachment, focus, speech control, consistency. Now we refine something critical, recovery. Because even disciplined people fail, even structured individuals lose rhythm, even focused minds drift. The difference is not the absence of disruption. The difference is the speed of return. Chapter 15. Recover faster than you collapse. Failure is inevitable. What matters is duration. How long do you stay off track? Most people compound failure. They miss one workout, then miss the week. They delay one task, then abandon the project. They break one habit, then declare the system broken. This is emotional amplification. One mistake becomes identity. I failed becomes I am a failure. That shift is dangerous. The disciplined individual interrupts that spiral immediately. They do not dramatize deviation, they correct it fast. Speed of recovery is more important than perfection of execution. You will have imperfect days. The question is, do you return tomorrow or do you rationalize delay? Recovery requires humility. You admit the lapse without excuse, without self-condemnation. Then you act immediately. Not next week, not next month, tomorrow. The longer you delay correction, the harder it becomes. Momentum works both ways, upward and downward. The disciplined person respects this. They protect upward momentum, and when it slips, they interrupt downward momentum quickly. No emotional speeches, no dramatic self-analysis, just return. Return to structure, return to movement, return to planning, return to presence, return to review. Return is discipline. Chapter 16. Play the long game relentlessly. Short-term thinking destroys discipline because discipline compounds slowly. You cannot measure character growth in days. You cannot measure mastery in weeks. You cannot measure resilience in months. These are multi-year constructions. Most people quit because their timeline is unrealistic. They expect dramatic, visible results quickly. When progress appears small, they lose faith. The disciplined individual extends the horizon. They ask, where will this habit place me in 5 years? Not, what is it doing this week? This shift stabilizes effort. When your horizon expands, urgency softens. Softened urgency reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety improves clarity. Clarity improves execution. Playing the long game requires patience. Patience requires confidence. Confidence comes from alignment with principle. When your daily behavior matches your values, long-term patience becomes easier because you know you are building something real, even if it is invisible. Think in decades. Train daily. Let time amplify your structure. Time rewards consistency more than intensity. Chapter 17. Prevent burnout without lowering standards. Burnout does not come from effort alone. It comes from misalignment, from chasing outcomes emotionally, from over-identifying with results, from constant comparison, from lack of recovery. True discipline includes rest, not indulgence, not laziness, rest as strategy. The Stoics valued moderation. They understood that sustainable effort requires rhythm. Rhythm includes recovery, but recovery must be deliberate, not accidental. You do not scroll mindlessly and call it rest. You step away intentionally. You sleep adequately. You disconnect from stimulation. You restore your nervous system. You protect your energy. This allows standards to remain high without collapse. Burnout often comes from ego-driven intensity, the need to prove, the need to outperform, the need to accelerate. But discipline is not ego, it is alignment. When effort is aligned with values, it feels purposeful.
When effort is aligned with validation, it feels draining. Rest when needed, but do not abandon structure. Recovery strengthens discipline. Avoidance weakens it. Learn the difference. Chapter 18. Remain calm under public pressure. Pressure reveals posture. When others panic, what do? When voices rise, what happens to your tone? When uncertainty spreads, what happens to your clarity? The disciplined individual becomes slower under pressure, not slower in action, slower in reaction. They reduce emotional speed, they narrow attention, they stabilize breathing. Calm is trained. You do not suddenly become calm in crisis if you have not practiced composure in small moments. Composure during inconvenience builds composure during crisis. When something minor goes wrong, traffic, delays, interruptions, observe your response. Do you react instantly, or do you regulate first? Micro-regulation builds macro-stability. Under public pressure, people look for steadiness. If you remain steady, you influence the emotional temperature of the room. This is leadership, not through dominance, through composure. Your calm becomes contagious because it signals control, and humans follow perceived stability. Train calm daily. Under stress, return to breath. Lower your voice, shorten your sentences, slow your movements. This interrupts escalation. Calm is not passive, it is controlled intensity. Chapter 19. Lead yourself before you lead others. Many people want influence. Few cultivate self-command. You cannot lead others effectively if you cannot lead your impulses. People observe consistency. They observe follow-through. They observe composure. Your discipline becomes silent authority. When your habits are structured, your words carry weight. When your routines are stable, your instructions feel credible. When your reactions are measured, your guidance feels safe. Leadership is not performance, it is stability under observation. When others see you rise on time, move with intention, speak clearly, review honestly, recover quickly, they notice, even if they never say it. Discipline creates influence without announcement. It is quiet, but powerful. Lead yourself rigorously. Influence will follow naturally. Chapter 20. Build internal calm before external order. Many people wait for life to calm down before stabilizing themselves, but life rarely becomes perfectly ordered. Chaos is constant. Deadlines shift, people change, unexpected problems emerge. If your calm depends on external stability, it rarely will exist. The disciplined individual builds calm internally first, through routine, through breath, through presence, through structured thought. They do not wait for silence, they create it internally. Internal calm is built through repetition, morning structure, movement, planning, presence, speech restraint, review. These habits lower internal noise. Lower noise improves clarity. Clarity reduces overreaction. Reduced overreaction stabilizes behavior. Calm becomes default, even when external chaos increases. You do not control the storm, you control your posture within it. That posture determines your effectiveness. We have now built recovery speed, long-term patience, burnout prevention, public composure, self-leadership, internal calm. But there is still one final layer, the deepest layer, identity under adversity. In Part 5, we complete this master script with discipline during emotional pain, stability during loss, consistency during uncertainty, the philosophy of unbreakable self-command, and the closing framework that ties everything together.
Part 5. Identity, adversity, and unbreakable self-command. Up to this point, we have built structure, recovery, calm, endurance, and self-leadership. Now we enter the deepest level. Who you are when things truly fall apart. Because discipline is easy when life cooperates. It is tested when it does not. Chapter 21. Discipline during emotional pain. There will be seasons when motivation disappears, not because you are lazy, but because you are hurting. Loss, disappointment, betrayal, uncertainty, exhaustion. In those seasons, discipline changes form. It becomes smaller, more precise, more compassionate, but not indulgent. You do not demand peak performance from yourself during grief. You demand minimum standards. Move your body, eat properly, sleep, complete essential tasks, maintain basic structure, not excellence, stability. This is critical. Pain tempts abandonment. It whispers, nothing matters. But this is when structure matters most. Small routines become anchors. Anchors prevent drift, and drift is dangerous during emotional pain. You do not solve your emotions with productivity. You stabilize yourself with consistency. You show up in smaller ways, but you show up. This preserves identity. When everything feels uncertain, your habits remind you who you are. Not emotionally, structurally. That stability becomes healing ground. Chapter 22. Stability during loss. When something important disappears, your internal map changes. And when the map changes, behavior becomes fragile. The disciplined individual protects routine during loss, not rigidly, but intentionally. Morning rhythm continues, movement continues, planning continues, even if intensity decreases, because routine restores predictability, and predictability restores psychological safety. Without it, the mind spirals. Loss can make you question meaning, but discipline restores direction, not by answering philosophical questions, but by keeping you moving. Movement prevents stagnation. Stagnation amplifies suffering. When you cannot control circumstances, you protect structure. Structure becomes your ground, even when the landscape changes. Chapter 23. Consistency during uncertainty. Uncertainty is different from loss. Loss is clear. Uncertainty is fog. You do not know what will happen. You do not know when it will resolve. The future feels unstable. This creates anxiety, and anxiety erodes discipline because the mind seeks immediate relief. Distraction, impulses, overthinking, avoidance. The disciplined individual simplifies during uncertainty. They narrow focus to controllable actions, daily tasks, health, communication, learning, planning. They refuse to project catastrophic futures. They act in present time. Present time execution reduces future-based anxiety. You cannot solve uncertainty by predicting it. You stabilize it by acting. Every completed task becomes proof of agency. Agency reduces helplessness, and helplessness is what uncertainty feeds on. Stay anchored in daily execution. Let the future unfold. You will meet it stronger if you remain structured now.
Chapter 24. Refuse emotional extremes. Extreme emotion destabilizes judgment, both positive and negative extremes. Excitement can make you reckless. Anger can make you destructive. Fear can make you passive. Euphoria can make you careless. The disciplined individual moderates emotional intensity, not suppressing, regulating. They allow emotion to pass through without letting it dictate behavior. This is mastery. Emotion is information. It is not command. You can feel deeply and still act rationally. You can experience disappointment and still follow your schedule. You can experience success and still wake up on time. Emotional neutrality increases longevity. Extremes burn quickly. Moderation sustains. If you want durable success, cultivate emotional steadiness. This protects your decision-making, and decision-making determines trajectory. Chapter 25. Detach from immediate results. Results are slow. Growth is invisible for long periods. This tempts impatience. Impatience leads to adjustment. Constant adjustment destroys compounding. The disciplined individual measures input before output. Did I execute the plan? Did I show up? Did I complete the tasks? Did I follow structure? If yes, progress is happening, even if invisible. Results are delayed reflections of past discipline. If you quit early, you interrupt the reflection. Trust the process long enough for it to mature. This requires emotional detachment from daily feedback. You do not need applause, you need alignment. Alignment compounds quietly, and when results finally appear, they appear stable because they were built patiently. Chapter 26. Build an unbreakable identity. At the deepest level, discipline is identity, not something you do, something you are. When discipline becomes identity, decisions simplify. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like it?" You ask, "Is this consistent with who I am?" Identity-based behavior is powerful because it removes negotiation. If you see yourself as disciplined, you act accordingly, even when inconvenient, even when tired, even when unmotivated. Identity reduces friction. To build this identity, repeat disciplined actions daily. Protect your word. Follow through. Recover quickly. Remain calm. Over time, evidence accumulates, and your self-perception shifts. You no longer try to be disciplined. You are disciplined, and that identity sustains itself.
Chapter 27. The philosophy of unbreakable self-command. Self-command is not domination of emotion. It is alignment between values and action. It is calm under stress. It is recovery after failure. It is restraint under temptation. It is patience under delay. It is steadiness under praise. It is movement during pain. It is silence when necessary. It is speech when purposeful. It is action without drama. Self-command is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek recognition. It builds silently, but its effects are visible. Stable behavior, clear thought, consistent progress, emotional moderation, long-term achievement. This is the architecture of inner strength, not intensity, structure, not aggression, clarity, not perfection, return. Return again and again to your standards. That repetition builds something unbreakable. Let us summarize the full architecture. 1. Control your mornings. 2. Reduce emotional reactivity. 3. Focus on controllable inputs. 4. Build daily structure. 5. Endure discomfort. 6. Limit unnecessary speech. 7. Eliminate distraction. 8. Recover quickly from failure. 9. Play the long game. 10. Prevent burnout through rhythm. 11. Remain calm under pressure. 12. Lead yourself first. 13. Build internal calm. 14. Maintain discipline during pain. 15. Protect routine during loss. 16. Simplify during uncertainty. 17. Moderate emotional extremes. 18. Detach from immediate results. 19. Build identity through repetition. 20.
practice unbreakable self-command. This is not a motivational philosophy. It is an operational system. When nothing is working, this system works because it does not depend on mood. It does not depend on circumstances. It depends on standards, and standards are chosen. There will be seasons when effort feels unrewarded. Continue. There will be days when progress feels invisible. Continue. There will be moments when quitting feels rational. Continue. Not blindly, not obsessively, but structurally. Because discipline is not about control over the world, it is control over posture, and posture determines trajectory. When nothing is working externally, build internally. When results delay, refine inputs. When chaos rises, reduce emotional speed. When pain appears, protect routine. When uncertainty spreads, narrow focus. When motivation fades, rely on identity. This is how you remain stable when others drift. This is how you grow when others stagnate. This is how you lead when others react. And this is how you build a life that does not collapse under pressure. Discipline is not loud, it is steady, and steady wins in the long term.